Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Mason Talks Sports Show. Now, this, of course, is a tad bit different from what I usually do, mainly being that there is a camera and partially it is live. I think it just uploads usually regularly how it would for any other video, but ideally, this will be a more unscripted, authentic version of the Mason Talk Sports Show. I guess I have a few topics I want to hit on today. Some of them are of deep philosophical importance. Other are not as important, but everything we talk about here at the Mason Talk Sports Show is important. But first of all, obviously, we need to get to the Cleveland Browns news of the day. And the big news is that minicamp started for the Browns today. And then today is Tuesday the 15th. I don't know if I mentioned that already. Tuesday the 15th of 2021, the Browns started minicamp in Berea, and some players showed up, some veterans showed up, some didn't. That was a whole big deal. I guess we don't need to talk about who didn't because they didn't show up, so it doesn't necessarily matter that much. But there were a couple of big takeaways from minicamp, a couple of big storylines that came out of minicamp. First of all, not only was Odell Beckham Jr. there, but he was an active participant. And that is a big deal because he is about 8 months off of an ACL surgery. So the fact that Beckham was there participating and catching passes from Baker Mayfield is a giant deal for the Cleveland Browns. And it shows that, hey, maybe you're going to have a fully healthy OBJ come the start of the regular season. So that was a big deal. And then the second thing that we saw at minicamp that I thought was of some importance or some intrigue was we got a little glimpse of the starting defensive line. Now, this is from ESPN Browns reporter Jake Trotter on Twitter. The starting defensive line that the Browns featured at their minicamp Tuesday was Jadeveon Clowney, Myles Garrett, who, both play defensive end, and then the starting defensive tackles, which this was a big thing that we've discussed a lot this offseason, seeing as Sheldon Richardson is gone. The starting defensive tackles for the Cleveland Browns were Andrew Billings and Malik Jackson. So that could be a little sneak preview into who the starting defensive line is for the Cleveland Browns come week 1. It could be, I would say it would even likely be Jadeveon Clowney, Andrew Billings, Malik Jackson, Myles Garrett. Now, you're going to have competition. You're going to have guys like Tommy Togiai who are going to, want to battle for depth. You're going to have, the other names that we've talked about all offseason battling for depth at that defensive tackle spot. But those were the starters day one. I think that's a big deal. Now, in the post-practice media availability, 2 players were asked about their status in terms of a potential contract extension. You had Denzel Ward, who, of course, is going to be getting a big contract from the Cleveland Browns in the not-too-distant future. Hopefully the Cleveland Browns. I'm pretty confident it's going to be the Cleveland Browns. And then Nick Chubb, who also is going to be, in line for a big payday. Now, I thought it was interesting looking at the players who are going to be coming up, as contract extension eligible for the Cleveland Browns. Because for the first time in a long time, we have a lot of players who we would like to re-sign. We have a lot of important players or players who have been important to our success that we probably should consider giving contract extensions to. Now, I wanted to give my priority list of the Browns contract extension eligible players. Like top priority, who should potentially be lower on that. Now, the 4 players that we're going to look at are Wyatt Teller, Denzel Ward, Nick Chubb, and Baker Mayfield. Now, I think there's a lot of different ways you can look at this, a lot of different ways that you can sort of, assess the value that these players have to the Browns. But for me, number one, top player in terms of priority for contract extensions would have to be Baker Mayfield. Now, I have 2 reasons for this. First of all, the biggest reason of all, quarterback is the most important position in all of football. And Baker Mayfield has been the most successful quarterback that the Browns have had since probably, Bernie Kosar or Vinny Testaverde or somebody, in that era. Definitely the best quarterback the Browns have had in the extension era. Quarterback is very important. Baker Mayfield is the best quarterback you've had in a long time. I think he's worthy of a contract extension. But the reason why he's number one in priority right now is because when you look at Baker Mayfield, I think from here on out, he's only going to be getting more expensive. Now, Baker right now, I think could already get a good amount of money from the Browns. But after this next season, I think the contract that we're going to see from Baker Mayfield, if they don't get it done this offseason, I think we're going to see that number grow a lot. Because when you look at Baker Mayfield going into this 2021 season, he had a good year last year. He's got basically the entire supporting cast of his offense returning. You have Kevin Stefanski returning, the first year that Baker Mayfield is going to have coaching continuity from one year to the next. And I think when you add all those things together, I think we're going to see Baker Mayfield have a sort of breakout season. I don't know if it necessarily counts as a breakout season because he's already been pretty good at the National Football League level. But I think we could see Baker Mayfield take a step even further. And if he does take that step, and if he does solidify himself as a top 10 quarterback, if he can stake his place as one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League, that contract extension next offseason would be even bigger. And you'd be looking at, money comparable to guys that we've seen in recent, years, like, not Patrick Mahomes. He wouldn't be getting Patrick Mahomes money. I'm trying to think, Ryan Tannehill got a good contract. I mean, Baker, if Baker goes out and balls this year, he's going to make a lot more money. So that's why the Browns should try to get something done now to preserve their salary cap as much as physically possible. So Baker's number one on the priority list. Number 2 on the contract extension priority list is running back Nick Chubb. Now, this was a sort of a debate between Nick Chubb and Denzel Ward, but I think right now my priority after Baker Mayfield would be re-signing Nick Chubb, because I think Nick Chubb is one of the really vital players to this Browns team. And that's not to say that Denzel Ward isn't vital. I think Denzel Ward is definitely an important piece. But when you look at the Browns offense, I think the offensive performance that we see when Nick Chubb is off the field is completely different and significantly worse than what we see when he is on the field. I mean, last year, there were 2 different Cleveland Browns offenses. There were the Browns when Nick Chubb was healthy, and there were the Browns when Nick Chubb was off the field or banged up or dealing with injuries or whatever. Nick Chubb was vital. The offense ran through Nick Chubb. He made the offense better. I mean, he was a game-changing player for the Browns. Denzel Ward is great. Denzel Ward is one of the best defensive players you have. Denzel Ward is definitely the best cornerback that you have. But I think that Nick Chubb is currently a more sort of vital player to the overall success of the Browns team than Denzel Ward is. But that just leads us to number 3 on the priority list, Denzel Ward. I mean, really, these 2 are interchangeable, Chubb and Ward. I think the Browns are going to get it done with both of them. I think both players are going to be signed to contract extensions. Like, I don't think we're going to have to leave one, stranded or leave one with an offer sitting on the table. Denzel Ward would have to be number 3 on the priority list, slightly behind Nick Chubb. but he still is a high priority. I mean, he still is one of the top 3 players that you have on your entire defense. And he's a lockdown corner, one of the best in the National Football League. And I think there's a chance he gets somewhere in the range of $18 million a year on his contract extension, or if he were, heaven forbid, to hit the open market. Denzel Ward is one of those vital players, and he's going to be getting his due. And now that, of course, leaves the 4th player that I mentioned before, Wyatt Teller. I think Wyatt Teller is the lowest priority right now for the Cleveland Browns in terms of a contract extension. And I would love to have him back. I would definitely like to have Wyatt Teller back. The Browns' running game is significantly more efficient, and they were definitely more effective when Wyatt Teller was on the field. But if Wyatt Teller had to walk in favor of, say, a big-time contract for Nick Chubb or in favor of a big-time contract for Denzel Ward, I think that's a tough move that the Browns would have to make. And he's a low priority right now. And if he were to walk, I think that right guard position is something that the Browns would be better able to replace than they would Nick Chubb or Denzel Ward, players who are vital to the success of your team. So that's my priority list. And you can let me know in the comments. You can let me know on the community page on Mason Talks. Where are you in terms of your priority list for contract extensions? I think Baker is number 1, no doubt. I think Nick Chubb is number 2 in a close race with Denzel Ward, who's number 3. And then my lowest priority right now would have to be Wyatt Teller. That's just how I view it. Now, I want to move on to another story involving the Cleveland Browns. And this one harkens back to the Jarvis Landry celebrity softball game, which occurred over the weekend. I think it was on Saturday, maybe. I didn't go or anything. I would have liked to go, but I kind of completely forgot it happened. So maybe I didn't want to go. I don't know. But Jarvis Landry had his celebrity softball game, and plenty of big names in the sporting world were there. Baker Mayfield was there. Odell Beckham was there. Darius Garland of the Cavaliers was there. And one non-Cleveland Browns NFL player who was in attendance was Travis Kelce, tight end of the Kansas City Chiefs. And of course, a person who is from Northeast Ohio. Now, an interesting thing that Travis Kelce said to the media was that he not only called the Cleveland Browns a contender, he also said that he sort of viewed the Browns as somewhat neck and neck with his team, the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, that is interesting because if you've been paying attention to the National Football League over the last 2 years, you would know that outside of maybe Tom Brady, the Kansas City Chiefs have been the most dominating force in the entire league, the entire National Football League. Kansas City's been the top. They've been the top dogs. So saying that the Browns are neck and neck with the Chiefs, of course, is implying that the Browns have the potential to be as dominant as Kansas City. And I thought that was interesting because I think that when you look at the two rosters, I think Travis Kelce's probably right. And I know that that's easy for me to say as somebody who is a fan of the Cleveland Browns. But when you look at the Browns roster and you compare it to the Kansas City Chiefs roster, there is a lot of, kind of close races in terms of positional battles. Now, defensively, the Browns and the Chiefs both have good defensive pieces, but the talk and the focus is going to be offensively. Because when you look at these two offenses, they are two of the best offenses, two of the most talented offenses in the league. Now, comparing the Browns to the Chiefs, I would say the Browns have the advantage over Kansas City in a couple of positional battles. Number one, I think the Browns do have a better offensive line. I think the Browns' offensive line is one of the best in the league, one of the best in the AFC, obviously. And I think that they have a better offensive line right now than the Kansas City Chiefs, especially since the Chiefs had to make some shakeups in their offensive line, getting rid of both of their starting offensive tackles, Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz. The Browns' offensive line, which features Jedrick Wills, Joel Bitonio, J.C. Treader, Wyatt Teller, and Jack Conklin, they were dominating last year, and they were one of the reasons why not only Baker Mayfield was incredibly successful, but why the running game was incredibly successful. And, that kind of leads me to the second position that I think the Browns have an advantage over the Chiefs in, and that is running back. Now, the Chiefs have some decent talent at running back. But I think overall, right now, I think the Browns probably have the best running back duo, or maybe the best running back room in general. I'm going to stick with the best running back duo in the National Football League. Again, Nick Chubb is a beast. He's one of the best in the league. I would throw him right up there with the guys like Derrick Henry. I think Nick Chubb is a complete and utter monster, and he's definitely better than Clyde Edwards-Helaire or anything else the Chiefs would be willing to put to the table in terms of running back. And I think that similar things can be said about Kareem Hunt. I mean, Kareem Hunt is in and of himself a top 15 running back in the National Football League. So, comparing the Browns running backs to the Chiefs running backs, I don't even think it's really close. The Browns have significantly better running backs than the Kansas City Chiefs. The interesting positional battle to me would have to be the Browns wide receivers versus the Chiefs wide receivers, because both teams definitely have, and I'm pulling up the Chiefs roster right now so I don't miss anybody. But both teams have kind of big name guys leading the position. When you look at the Chiefs, they have Tyreek Hill, who of course is, one of the best deep threats in the National Football League. The Browns have, Odell Beckham Jr. if he's healthy, and also Jarvis Landry, two very talented wide receivers. But then the Chiefs have a good amount of depth, and they have some playmakers, guys like Mecole Hardman, who of course is able to make plays not only just as a receiver, but in the running game as well. And when you look at the Browns, I think the Browns have some good depth this year. Outside of Landry and Odell Beckham, I think Donovan Peoples-Jones has the potential to be very good. I think Rashard Higgins, of course, has shown that he can be very good with Baker Mayfield. I, of course, am a gigantic fan of Anthony Schwartz, the rookie receiver out of Auburn. And, despite the fact that the Chiefs have a lot of good proven receivers on their team, I think the Browns wide receiver room has the potential to be better than what the Chiefs have. If Odell Beckham's able to stay healthy, if Jarvis Landry's able to stay healthy, if Donovan Peoples-Jones hits his potential, if Anthony Schwartz hits anywhere near his potential, which, by the way, Anthony Schwartz has been making plays at practice for the Browns. I mean, he hasn't been a complete, just raw athlete, raw sprinter like some people thought he was going to be. If the Browns receivers can reach their potential and if they can reach their ceiling, I think the Browns receivers can be better than the Chiefs. Now, the one position group that the Chiefs are absolutely better in is tight end. We have Austin Hooper, we have Harrison Bryant, we have David Njoku. Those are three good players, three capable players. They're fine. But nobody we have, and not even the combination of the trio that we have, is better than Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is one of the best in the league. So tight end, they definitely have us in. But outside of tight end, I think there's an argument to be made that the Browns receivers are better than the Chiefs receivers. I think the Browns running backs are better than the Chiefs running backs. And I think our offensive line is better than the Chiefs offensive line. Now, when you look at these two rosters, they're neck and neck, but the Chiefs have a clear advantage in one positional group, the one that we haven't talked about, and that's quarterback. The Chiefs, and this is what makes the entire thing. The Chiefs could have a complete bum roster. They could have no talent whatsoever, and I still think they'd be a playoff caliber team because they have Patrick Mahomes. And that's sort of the X factor when you're comparing these two teams. The Browns are going to forever be like cursed to lose to the Chiefs in the playoffs. They're never going to overcome the Chiefs if Baker Mayfield can't step up and play at a Mahomes-like level. He doesn't have to be Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't have to be this revolutionary, crazy playmaker quarterback or any of those things. He doesn't have to have the rocket arm or anything of that magnitude. But if the Browns want to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, Baker Mayfield has to be able to stand toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes. And if he can do that, I do think the Browns can overcome the Chiefs in the postseason. I do think they're neck and neck. I do think these two teams could be the two best in the entire AFC, but it's going to come down to quarterback. It's going to come down to quarterback between Baker Mayfield and Patrick Mahomes. Now, there's one last thing I want to talk about, and this has nothing to do with the Cleveland Browns. It doesn't have anything to do with any sport that I know, but I thought it was an interesting conversation to be had. Now, U.S. sprinter Shelby Houlihan has been banned for 4 years for doping after her claim that she ate a contaminated pork burrito 10 hours before a positive test for nandrolone was rejected. I don't know if I said that drug right. I don't do drugs. I just pronounce them poorly. Now, I think the first thing to be thought of when you read this headline is that Shelby's probably a liar. Shelby probably, and this is reckless speculation. This has no basis behind it. I don't think Shelby was food poisoned by a burrito that she got from a authentic Mexican food truck. I think it probably was drugs, but I have no proof for that. I have no way to prove that. It's just me speculating. But the second thing that this led me to, if she really did eat a burrito that poisoned her and made her better at sprinting, the question that came to my mind was, which fast food item would you be willing to risk your career for? Because that's what Shelby did. If the authentic Mexican burrito really did contaminate her system. And I thought of 3. And keep in mind, when I'm listing these fast food items, I am not a genius about food items. I am only a genius about the Cleveland Browns. So number 1, the first fast food item that I would be willing to give up my career for is the sausage breakfast crunch wrap from Taco Bell. Now, Taco Bell, I think it's a bad rap because most of their restaurants are disgusting. But their breakfast is pretty good. And pretty good is the fish fillet. I see somebody in the comments said fish fillet. I hate fish, but I can understand that because many people love the fish fillet. But the breakfast sausage crunch wrap is my first choice because I think it's one of the best breakfast fast food items in the entire nation. I really do. Taco Bell does a great job. The rest of their food might be questionable all the time, but their breakfast is very good. That's number 1. Number 2, and this is a no-brainer pick in my mind, the Wendy's traditional Baconator burger. Now, the Baconator, in my humble opinion, is the best fast food burger for the money that you get for it. Now, you can get better burgers elsewhere, no doubt. But the Baconator is at a reasonable price, and it's very good. I may feel like I'm literally going to die after I eat it, but I think it's reasonable. Reasonable enough to be willing to give up my career for it. That's number 2, the Baconator. Number 3, and I think this one is my most questionable choice, but I really feel passionately about it. The McDonald's. As soon as I said McDonald's, I had self-doubt. The McDonald's value menu chicken sandwich. Just the McChicken, the regular McChicken. I love these things, and I think that really when all you have to do is give $1 for it, and you could get 3 or 2, however many you want, beautiful chicken sandwiches for $1 a piece at most McDonald's. That's something that we should all be willing to lose our jobs for. And I personally am. Those are my 3. And you can let me know in the comments if you watch this later. What 3 fast food items would you be willing to give up your career for? Mine were the sausage breakfast crunch wrap from Taco Bell, the Wendy's Baconator, and the McDonald's value menu McChicken sandwich. This has been the Mason Talk Sports Show, the live show. This is it. I would like to do more live shows often. I wanted to try this to see how it went, how people felt about it. So let me know in the comments if you like this sort of formatted show. Just let me know in the comments. A lot of it's going to be Browns heavy, but I would also like to talk other stuff as well. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Let me know in the comments anything you thought of today's show. Thanks for listening to the Mason Talks Sports Show. I will see you in my next episode. Goodbye.